everybody. Artistry and Finesse with you on Sunday night. Busy sports weekend. It was good in that it got us right into a couple of Penguins games, an actual Steelers victory to sort of put the Pirate season behind us, which I think we needed to do as quickly as possible. But what we're dealing with now, Finesse, is maybe the best of the really bad football teams and the Steelers, and still, very early in Penguin season. So tough to get too fired up about the weekend, but it kept our attention.
There was a lot going on, but none of it felt particularly important. This win for the Steelers was more about kind of reputation, I think. It would have been super embarrassing to go to 0-5 losing to the Jets. And I think if the Steelers drop to 0-5, you start seeing, you've already seen fissures among the men in the locker room. And I think if it goes to 0-5, it could get really ugly. So I think just from a long-term perspective, you kind of root against the Steelers at this point because you want a higher draft pick, but it would have been super embarrassing to lose that game.
It would have been, and we never thought that they were that bad. We thought they were 6-10, 7-9 at worst, and really they aren't that bad. And we were reminded today, we love making fun of them. There's nothing really more fun than making fun of them. But when you have a quarterback like Ben, it's almost impossible to be that bad. He's always going to keep you in games, at least against the average teams.
I think the way to describe the Steelers is not in terms of whether they're bad. I think you just say, they're not that good.
Right.
They're just not really good, but they don't...
They're pedestrian. They're very pedestrian.
Yeah, they're just kind of average. They can win a really boring game against the Jets where somehow it's such a bad weekend that Jim Nantz and the number one CBS crew has to go to this game, which was undeserved. Right. This game did not deserve number one crew treatment.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it deserved, the trio of Nantz, Sims, and Cower.
They should have sent Pompiani and Oxenreiter.
Isn't Cower embarrassed a little bit, by the way, that he's always pimping his rock star girlfriend who I had never heard of? Did you hear that on the telecast? They played a little bit of her music.
I heard that, yeah. Well, what
is that all about? That is so bizarre.
He's still mourning the loss of his wife. And I think
it's
this
just
is just
how
bizarre
bizarre that they were like, hey, why don't you give a shout out to this random person on the broadcast?
How old is his girlfriend?
I think she's a younger woman.
You think she's
not really sure.
She's in her 20s or something?
I don't know if she's that young. She's definitely not much older than 30, I'll tell you that.
Well, you get to his position and you work hard for a reason. And that reason is if you somehow become single in your mid-50s and you have a lot of money and fame,
right?
Maybe you just hit the reset button and you start dating a 25-year-old again.
And he's not shy about it. He doesn't feel the slightest bit bad about it. What's the woman's name? Queen Diamond or something?
I don't know.
He's
Diamond,
yeah. He's give it up for Queen whatever.
Well, who are we to judge?
No, I think it's good for Bill. So that was one of my big takeaways from the game, during which I fell asleep for 45 minutes. And the other one, I can't really get over how Young Money, they have no discernment. They have no idea when it's appropriate to celebrate, when it's not appropriate to celebrate. No. They're just celebrating everything that they do.
Right.
Which on the one hand, good for you, Young Money, but on the other hand, it's a little inappropriate at times.
Young Money is out of control. They're just it's unclear whether they know the score of the game. Who was it last year who we talked about that we were not sure they know the score of the game?
Chris Letang.
Oh yeah, Chris Letang. They're sort of like Chris Letang in a way, but
right.
Antonio Brown could be the Chris Letang of hockey. Now that I think of it, they just kind of run around. You're not sure what he's doing. There's a lot of bonehead plays in there. He's got top level talent. Today, he had a nice game, but he dropped a touchdown pass. Where's the dancing? Where's the shimmying when you drop the touchdown pass and you're 0-4?
And the cockiness, it's so over the top. When he drops the touchdown pass, it looks as if he's talking shit to Antonio Cromartie after he dropped the touchdown pass. Like he's smiling at him, he's like in his face. Like when you drop the touchdown pass, just go back to the huddle at the very least.
It just seems like he's out there, for his own reasons. I'm not sure. He has his reasons. I don't know if they're the right reasons.
I don't know if they're the right reasons.
But they're reasons. And then, Emmanuel Sanders gets a touchdown and does a backflip from like the 5-yard line into the end zone. It was bizarre. Like it's just, I'm not saying we're not so old school that we think that's always terrible, but like there's a time and a place for it. And like we joke about how the Steelers needed to have games taken away from them in the locker room so they could finally win a game.
Right.
And I see the behavior of those two guys, and I'm thinking, like, maybe they really were playing too many games in the locker room. I mean, look at those guys. They don't seem to take it all that seriously.
Yeah, like, did any of the coaches ever say, like, maybe just, even if you haven't been there before and you're not willing to act like you've been there before, at least don't act like a total clown at the completely wrong time. Does anybody ever have that discussion with them?
It's very unbecoming.
Ben, as a leader, wouldn't Ben and Key, the 08ers, intervene? They're going to take away ping pong and pool. Wouldn't they say you can't do this? Or did Hines Ward set a precedent that you're just allowed to celebrate everything all the time?
But Hines Ward was all business. I mean, he celebrated within the context of the game.
Right.
Like, it was never – you never saw his celebrating as about Hines Ward. It was more like, we got a first down, not I got a first down, and it's now 6-3 early in the second quarter, and I'm going to do, like, the Macarena in the middle of the field. We're at our own 41-yard line.
Yeah.
It's a little bit crazy. But I wanted to ask you about Ben because I was watching today, and he played a really good game, I thought. He goes up – but – like, when he goes up to the line of scrimmage and he does his pointing and his gyrating,
right,
and he's, like, yelling at the guys and he's yelling at the troops, like, part of me thinks he does that just because he sees other quarterbacks do it on TV. Like, I'm not sure what orders he's barking, but if I had to guess what orders he's barking, like, I think...
Laundry?
Yeah, my dryer's done. Like, I think Peyton Manning gets up there and he's calling out all kinds of crazy audibles and, like, dissecting the defensive coverage.
He's reacting to what he sees. Yeah.
I think Ben is like, Marcus, block the guy directly in front of you. Like, do you see that guy whose face is 6 inches from your face? Like, block him. That's your man.
I'm making a triangle with my hands. Yeah. Look at what I'm doing. I'm making a triangle with my hands. And
then they do that thing.
Go in motion.
They do that thing where they take, instead of just pointing with one hand, they take two hands and they point like at the same person but with two hands.
I would like to see Ben when he goes up to the line just do the 2-finger point to the Lord. Just have him like, Lord, this play is for you. Okay, triangle with my hands.
It's just God calling an audible.
God, watch this. Yeah.
But do you think the Steelers are back in any sense, or just had a win to sort of meander their way along to 5-11 or 6-10?
Well, I think that they're back to where we thought they would be this season, which is not good at all, but not, in the same realm as the Jacksonvilles of the world. We're not going to have, unfortunately, in my view, we're not going to have a top 5 draft pick. We're going to be good enough that we're in that, 10 to 15 range at the very least. And maybe we, have a little bit of a winning streak here where we get into 7-9 territory as we predicted. I don't know, but there's some stability now on the offense with Heath Miller back and Bell, who wasn't very good today. But, at least he's a serviceable running back. He's not a ridiculous feature back, like Ike Redmond. Where the offense is going to score a reasonable amount of points to stay competitive against mediocre teams.
Right. When we get bad quarterbacks, we can still win, or turnover-prone quarterbacks.
Yeah, they are who we thought they were.
Last thing before we get off the Steelers, though, did you see that the Levi Brown experiment is over already?
He popped a tricep this game?
I think his triceps just popped for good. Like, I think he's out for the season. He didn't even play a game. He popped his triceps in warm-up.
Is this like spontaneous combustion of the triceps? They're just like popping left and right. How does this happen?
I think the Steelers need to go over their stretching routine pregame. They're doing something where everyone's triceps are just exploding at midfield. Like, they get a guy who stinks, and he missed all of last season with a torn tricep. And he gets to the Steelers off the scrap heap from Arizona. Like, our offensive linemen are so bad. And
I couldn't wait to get rid of him.
In warm-ups before his first game, he pops a tricep.
That's not a good sign.
It's
just not. And it looked like Kelvin Beachum really struggled today.
Kelvin?
Isn't that his name? Kelvin Beachum?
Isn't it Kevin?
No. I think it's Kelvin.
Is it?
Yeah.
Agree to disagree. I think it's Kevin.
Luckily, we have a way to check this.
We'll get a fact checker. Someone fact check that.
I'm going to check this. So, the Penguins had their first road trip of the season this weekend. And, there's nothing quite like the Florida road trip in the early part of the season to just make you feel like you're just swimming in quicksand. I just hate these trips to Florida. It makes me just wish there were no teams there. They're never that much fun. Although the Tampa game was, it turned into a good game. It started off as just a brutal game. But I just hate these trips to Florida.
Yeah, they seem meaningless. Like, they're either just really depressing losses or stat padding games where you're just hoping Crosby or Malkin gets a 4 or 5 point night.
It's Kelvin Beachum. And I don't know why you would be so sure of yourself.
I don't know what site you're using. Is it a reputable site?
It's Google.
Well,
maybe you've heard of it.
Let's get back to the Penguins. I'll take my lumps on Kelvin Beachum.
Okay.
Here's what we can agree on, though. Kelvin Beachum is not good.
Not good.
I think he had like 4 penalties today.
Yeah, we don't have good offensive linemen. It's the bottom line.
But the stat padding game on this trip was the Lindback game because I think his goals against the Penguins is over 5. We light that guy up all the time.
That guy is not impressive. It makes you wonder, Yzerman's been in Tampa for a couple of years now. I don't really see that team as developing any sort of an identity. I don't see the improvement there. It seemed like he inherited a bunch of talent, and they're just not that good.
No, it seems like they're not getting enough out of the Stamkos peak years. Like, I don't know if it's him, being a stat guy and not really a wins guy, but they did have that one run to the Eastern Conference Finals where they lost like 1-0 in Game 7 to Boston in 2011.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think they've been very disappointing.
Well, we gave them a real run for their money that year, even though we had Mark Letestu and Alexei Kovalev's corpse on the top line.
Well, that's a good segue into a question I wanted to ask you, which is that was spring 2011. Fall 2010, we saw Crosby playing at his highest level ever. Do you think that fall 2013 could equal that or even be better?
Well, I know that Crosby historically has not been a strong starter. It always takes him a while to get his game in gear. And I thought that the combination of him getting a 4-point game and, the 5th game of the season and doing it in the manner that he did, scoring those goals that he scored in the Stanley Cup playoff run in 2009 when he's just tipping pucks, he's right in front of the net, getting rebounds, using his ultra-quick skates and hands to score goals that not many people can right in front of the net. I think it's a strong indicator that this could be an all-time great year for him.
Yeah, he seems really, really locked in right now.
He's dialed in.
And you already have Rob Rossi writing about Crosby being the MVP, and we're 5 games into an 82-game season.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, speaking of Rob Rossi, I have to ask you a question, and just generally about the Pittsburgh media, which to me, I mean, it's just laughable. Don't they have like their post-game scrums where they can ask questions? I mean, what are they doing after the game? Are they just writing their columns and not asking any questions? I think that they do. I'm not sure that the first iteration of their recap includes quotes all the time, but I just don't know how you can watch that game against Tampa and Bo Bennett gets 6 minutes of time on ice. And there's nothing in either the Tribune Review or the Post-Gazette this morning, I looked before we got on the podcast, that even mentions this. This is a top 6 forward. He's the best young forward that we have, and he falls off the map against Tampa Bay with no explanation. Is he injured?
I don't know.
Did he fall out of favor? What happened? Did anybody ask?
I would like to know. I would like to know the answer to that.
Isn't your job as a beat writer to ask this question?
Right. The story is not like, oh, Crosby got a hat trick. I mean, you could just copy-paste that from his other hat tricks.
Yeah, we can see the box score.
Right. We want to go inside the box score.
Give us a little insight.
Right. But that seems...
What happened to Bo Bennett?
If he's not hurt, that seems like a really bad... That seems bad.
Now Chuck Kobasu has played well. Granted, if the answer is, Bilesma thought Chuck Kobasu needed to get a shot with Malkin, that's one thing, but that doesn't explain why Bennett just didn't play.
Well, first of all, I don't think that's a worthy thing. I think that's nonsense to sit
but it would be
so somebody else could play with Malkin.
It would be an explanation. We might not agree with it.
Yeah, I think it's a bad explanation.
But Bennett didn't even play. He didn't even play on the third line. He was just gone.
Yeah, he must have been.
Point in the third period.
You have to think he's banged up, although I wouldn't put it past Bilesma and company. They seem to do this thing where, like, they want the young guy to play really well, but they don't give him an opportunity. They don't seem to let them make mistakes. And if there's something that Bennett did that upset them, he's not going to get better by playing 6 minutes. He'll get better by playing 16 minutes.
I agree with that completely. What did you think about Ole Mata, who played only 10 minutes last night?
Well, I want to tell you something that's going to upset you, but also maybe make you happy. I don't know. Before we got on this podcast, because I do extensive preparation for these podcasts, I went and looked up some of the advanced statistics. Now, for the Corsies, who do you think is the best Corsi guy on the Penguins so far this season? This is at 5-on-5 with the score close, which I think means tied or within 1 goal.
It has to be Tanner Glass.
It's Ole Mata.
Ole Mata.
Best Corsi on the Penguins.
Very interesting. So this is an example of a time when we can use Corsi to our advantage by citing it to prove a point that we just feel like proving.
Well, let me now give you a Corsi statistic that's going to upset you very much.
Okay.
Number 5 overall in the NHL in Corsi right now. I bet Tyler Kennedy.
Of course.
Yeah. So it cuts both ways.
Goes without saying.
Yeah, it cuts both ways.
But
Bo Bennett is 21. I mean, Bo Bennett is third on the Penguins in the Corsies. You got Malkin second and Bennett third. I mean, Bennett's Corsies are better than Crosby's Corsies.
So why wasn't Neil Greenberg at the post-game scrum last night holding up a sheet of paper with the Corsies on it and saying, why wasn't Bo Bennett playing in the third period? Where was Neil Greenberg?
Explain yourself, Dan Bilesma. Explain yourself. It's I think Mata's encouraging, though. I just don't know. He certainly proved that he isn't going to be overwhelmed by being in the NHL if we keep him up here.
No, he's an asset. He's an amazing skater. He's a really good all-around player. He may make mistakes, but as I noted last night, after 80 games, he's going to be a veteran. He's going to be every bit the defenseman as Matt Niskanen is, defensively in 80 games, I would submit to you. And he's going to bring more to the table in terms of upside. So I think the way to look at this, hey, little artistry, what's up, bud? Yeah.
How's he?
Mommy, I think is probably in a room. Did you?
How's he feeling?
How are you feeling, buddy? Do you want to say hi to Finesse? Come on, say hi, Finesse. Come lean down to the microphone.
Hey, how you doing, little Archie? Tell him to say hi to GTOG Nation.
Can you say hi, GTOG Nation? Say hi, GTOG Nation.
you know who you should say hi to? Is one of our new Spreaker followers, Tony Dominguez.
Oh, Tony's a follower now.
Yeah, we got Tony.
I've been wondering when he was going to get on board. Yeah. Buddy, I think she's upstairs. I'm not sure. Anyway, what was I saying about Olimata?
He's an asset.
Yeah. So my point about this is that he's going to be a good player after 80 games. You got to let him play. And it is incredibly short-sighted to think, we're going to lose a year on his first contract if we let him stick around. The way to look at this is you're gaining a year of his career because the guy's a really good player. That's beyond dispute, right. I think, at this point.
It's way too. I think it's the opposite of short-sighted in a way. It's like way too long-term perspective. But it's short-sighted that you're just worried about his first contract. Like, if the guy's as good as he looks, we're hoping he'll be around his whole career. Yeah,
how about have him for another year?
How about the bargain you're getting now for like $1 million or whatever he costs? You know?
Yeah.
Are you worried at all about the backup goaltending situation? Zakhoff was really not. He wasn't. I don't think he was horrible in the Florida game. I thought the whole team was kind of just not into it. But he wasn't very good and didn't show a lot of signs of promise.
Well, I don't know that I would say I'm worried about it. I'm clear-eyed about it. This guy's not a legitimate NHL goalie. There's a reason that he's 26 years old. His name is Jeff Zakhoff, and he has played in the minor leagues to this point. It's because he's not an NHL caliber goalie. And I think that it's good to find this out now. I hope that we'll move aggressively to address the backup goaltender situation, not wait until the trade deadline. Because the last thing I think you want is to rely heavily on Fleury until March. And then all of a sudden, the guy's in a decent headspace to bring in a veteran goalie to challenge him going into the playoffs, which is the way that would need to be construed. I mean, clearly at that point we would only be bringing someone in because we don't have confidence in Fleury. So the time to do that is now. Let him get acclimated. Let him get used to the idea that he's going to be pushed and he's got to perform. Don't present him with that at the last possible moment. Do you agree?
I agree completely. And don't present the team with, like, crazy change like last year where you're basically a different team going into the playoffs than you were all season. I'd like to see a few moves, but, like, overall continuity with the team. I like the team. The team's good. The Penguins are very good. But I do think there's an issue with goaltending. I wasn't it's not Fleury's fault. He was good the first 3 games. But this last game, it's one of those games where it's like, yeah, you don't blame him really for any goal, but then you look up and there's 4 goals against, and it's just, he doesn't, you never, like every time it got to 2-2, you're like, this is not over. Both teams are going to score more goals. And I just wish he could instill a little bit more confidence in that regard.
Do you still have a lot of concern about the bottom 6 forwards? I mean, obviously we're going to get Neil back. It looks like Bennett will be bumped down to the 3rd line. But the 3rd line right now has been pretty good. The Sutter, Dustin Jeffrey, Kobasu line has been decent. Do you still think that we're going to need to add another player to bump one of those guys or somebody from the 4th line out of the lineup?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's a good enough line. Like Jeffrey Kobasu. I mean, Kobasu has almost no pedigree at all.
One thing that I find very amusing is the Tanner Glass early season phenomenon, where he has really played above expectations considering the disaster that was last season. But something that made me laugh against Tampa is the guy sort of like feeling good about himself clearly, because at one point he tried to skate the puck out of the defensive zone. Tanner Glass should not be skating anything out of the defensive zone. And he ran right into somebody. Like somebody just stood up inside, their own, the blue line for our zone and just knocked him off the puck. And, just drove home the point. Like, don't get a big head, Tanner
Right.
Glass, please.
The worst thing that can happen to Tanner Glass is he gets too much confidence.
Yeah.
Like he can really be serviceable, I guess. Like he wasn't bad at Vancouver. He was awful last year. I mean, he was like just horrible for the Penguins last year. But maybe he can be serviceable this year. I'm more worried about the third line than the fourth line, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about the fights the last couple of nights? I've been thinking a lot about the fighting issue, and I'm finding that I'm reacting differently to these fights. They're not exciting for me. Like I used to sit up and pay a little closer attention when there was a fight. I didn't really feel like Tanner Glass fought that guy Harrison the other night.
Yeah.
Like I almost felt like getting up and going to get a glass of water or something. Like it's just like
I didn't mind. I thought that was a decent fight. It sort of happened in the context of the game.
I guess. I just didn't really care.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't care that much either. The Craig Adams-Ryan Malone fight was bizarre. I don't understand that. But, what was that about? Why did they do that? I
have no idea. They're really good friends. I mean, the only thing I can think of...
They just wanted to fight?
Yeah, they're just we gotta get, Craig Adams is we had a really bad showing last night against the Panthers. Got to get the troops fired up, and Malone's just too stupid to do anything else but fight. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it just clearly these guys are not taking cues from the general managers for their teams.
No, but I know there's all these studies that it doesn't have any impact or stuff like that, but. They want to do it. The players want them to fight. And then the guys fighting want to fight. So I don't know. Yeah. It's an awkward thing where, maybe we just have to say, yeah, it's not the best thing in the world, but they want to do it. And if they know it's dangerous and they still want to do it, I mean, I don't know. I don't have to like it that much, but it's I don't know that we need to ban it outright when all the players want to do it. They seem to get into it.
I guess. But that's why there are checks and balances.
Yeah.
It's the players are not the smartest people in the world.
Although I wouldn't I don't know that increasing the penalties for fighting is the right move, because I think what would happen in that case is you're going to get a lot of bad players trying to draw better players into fights. If you start giving 10-minute penalties for fighting, why wouldn't somebody just why wouldn't Zach Ronaldo just go and at Chris Letang and stick him in the balls for 5 minutes until he drops the gloves? And basically the only way at that point to avoid it is if someone comes up to Letang and drops their gloves, is Letang not supposed to fight back? And I don't trust the referee discretion to sort that out and penalize the appropriate person. I think that could be a big problem.
It's not an easy thing to resolve. You were tweeting quite a bit about Zach Ronaldo today. What was that all about?
Well, there's this guy, this Flyers beat writer for Philly.com, who wrote this ridiculous article. And I'll read you the first couple paragraphs. It says, when Craig Berube was named the 18th coach in Flyers history Monday, he said his sagging team needed to play with more passion, more energy. He obviously wasn't talking about winger Zach Ronaldo. Simply put, if all the Flyers had played with the hustle shown by Ronaldo, Peter Laviolette would probably still be the coach, and Berube would still be one of his right-hand men. Now, Zach Ronaldo runs around trying to hurt people, and he's completely out of control, and he has very minimal hockey ability. And he's more dangerous than a fighter, because at least a fighter is squaring up, and you choose to fight them or you choose not to. You sort of take the risk. He runs around like an idiot. He hurts his team. This idea that he's playing well is ridiculous. They're 1-5. He had 11 penalty minutes in the game against Phoenix, including a bad penalty when Phoenix scored the game-winning goal on the power play. And, it's this culture in Philly, it's great because it just never stops. But
plays right into our hands.
Right. They hire Craig Berube, and then, the theme is that they need to be tougher and have, more passion, more energy. Maybe they need to be smarter.
Maybe more disciplined.
Yeah, they're leading the league in penalty minutes again. And this idea that Ronaldo's playing so well, he played 3 minutes and 46 seconds in the last game. That's how much ice time he got.
I just hope they never fire Paul Holmgren.
Yeah, they're a mess. They're a mess.
Terrible.
I mean, they're struggling. The Caps are struggling too. I don't know what to make it.
And Caps. The Rangers, right? The Rangers too.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I think the Caps' problem is they just don't. Their defense is not good. Their forwards are good. Ovechkin's playing great. He's flying. Their power play is really good. Their 6 defensemen are not very good defensively.
Yeah, I mean it's really great. It's not easy to have a really good team year in and year out, and people take it for granted here. I know that people feel like the regime in Pittsburgh is stale, with Bilesma in particular, but this is not. It's not as easy as setting the lineup. It makes it easier to be able to pencil in Crosby, Malkin, et al. Every night, but it's not a guarantee. The Philly, if you would have said that Peter Laviolette was going to manage to steer that team out of the playoffs last season, not many people would have been on board with that prediction.
No.
And yet it happened. It's not easy.
No, Pens are lucky. And I thought that I guess my feeling about the team now is that it's just as likely as ever to win the Cup. I mean, it's a really good team.
Yeah.
And Malkin hasn't hit his stride yet.
Yeah, he's just he'll never change Malkin, I don't think. He's never going to be a guy that he's always going to leave you feeling like there's another gear, with a few exceptions maybe, but he's just got so much talent. If he's not putting up, Lemieux numbers, you feel like something's lacking.
Right. If I was a sports radio host and I wanted to stir up controversy on a slow day, I would get on the radio and just be like, the Crosby-Malkin debate is over.
Well, Crosby's just so damn efficient. The guy is so efficient.
Right.
Whatever he has out there, he gets the most of it. And Malkin is the guy that gets 19 shots and no points.
Right. But he gets 19 shots in the most dominant game you've ever seen anyone play.
Right. Like that game against Boston. What was it, game 3 or 4? Where he has the most dazzling moves you've ever seen and he can't score.
Well, he doesn't. His problem is his shot. He doesn't put it under the crossbar. He shoots every goal he scores is that 18 inches off the ice blocker side.
Right.
He doesn't go over the shoulder that much. He does. I think his shot is the weakest part of his game, and I mean, for somebody who scored over 50 goals, that's surprising. But I think his shot, his fit, and maybe not his shot, but his finish. He could, if he was just a little bit better finisher, he'd be the best player in the league.
It's the finish. Lemieux needs to text him, meet me at center ice, and then he needs to walk down from his box, his suite, and just show Gino how to wrist a puck through an elevator door.
Right.
The way that only he could.
Only he can do a lot of things.
All right. Well, good times. We've got a lot more to come on the Pens. Maybe we'll do another podcast in a week or so. And we'll stop talking about the Steelers at some point because they're very pedestrian. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, GTOG.
Get to our day.